All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Talk at 8. This is episode 62. My name is Alton. I'm the host. And as always, I have a very exciting panel for you. I'm coming to you from a dimly lit guest house in Ladysmith. On my way back to Cape Town, cycling 7 days or 9 days. We did 2 days, two races. We're now cycling 9 days, 7 days from Naazneen to Cape Town. And it's fun and games with the team that I have. They have each got their own personalities and they each have their own sense of humor. Let me just leave it there. But tonight, next week we'll hear about them because they are the guests for next week to tell you about their experience. So I'll save some of the anecdotes for next week. But tonight we have world champion Tasneem. We've got Naazneen, who's a world champion in her own right. We've got Cheryl, who's a world champion in her own right. And he'll join us in a minute or two as soon as he comes online. But let's start with Tasneem, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Walaikum salam. I'm good, and yourself?
Good, thank you. Good. Tell us a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do? And how do you become a world champion?
I think it all started at home, like 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was my sister played before I even played. I mean, she went away, and I was like, one day when I'm big, I want to, end up playing better than her. And coming from Bonte, it was tough. But luckily for me, we had our own pool shop. So my daddy used to grind us, like, the right way. And yeah, I think from there the rest is history. And going to England in Blackpool, representing South Africa, and I had a very tough run in the singles draw because I took out 4 world champs to become the world champ.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think in the finals it was very nail-biting because it ended up with the deciding frame, and it was my break, and it was a dry break. And I went back to my chair and I was like, red. If I look at it, red is done.
Yeah.
And then made a foul, and it was my turn. And I was like, going with all that nerves and everybody looking back home on the lives. And I was just like, Tasneem, you just need to make sure. You just need to make sure. And yeah, and it was very emotional when I potted the black. I think I just I shook her hand, and then I went to go and sit, and I just, burst out. So it was a very big moment for me. And I still get very emotional.
And I'm sure you will for the rest of your life. But before we get there, tell us what are the rules around black ball, 8 ball, because people don't even know that there is a difference between all these different pool table games. So what makes your game different to snooker? Let me ask it in a simple way.
Snooker is on a bigger table.
Yeah.
And I'm way too small for snooker tables.
Okay.
And I play on a 7-foot table, the pool table. The rules there is I played 8 ball, so it's the ultimate rule. So you only get 1 shot. You don't get 2 shots, and if you get the foul, ball in hand, you can place the white anywhere on the table. So and the black ball is where you still get your shot, and yeah.
So was this the first time you represented South Africa in an international tournament?
No, I've been representing South Africa since 2010, but that was for black ball. This was my second time representing South Africa at the 8 ball. I went in 20 and I lost.
Sure. Nathima Isaacs on Facebook says congratulations on your fantastic achievement, Tasneem. So we're gonna park it there. We'll come back to you in a minute. Cheryl, good evening. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi. So I moved down to Cape Town last year, April, and then I started running. Well, I couldn't even run like 3Ks without stopping. I used to run on my treadmill. That was me running. So when I moved here, I took up road running, and we entered the EPSA race, I think about 6 weeks since I started now running. So that was a 10K, and it was such a joy.
Yeah.
And then I was like, why not try another one? And the next week was Slave Route. I did that and did that. And then I think 6 weeks since EPSA, I entered my first half marathon, and I was like, man, I can do this. And then it just snowballed from there. And I was like, if I can do a half marathon, why not do the 30K? And then I did the John Kurasi race, and I was like, you know what? Maybe a marathon is not so bad. It's just 12 more Ks. And I entered Cape Town Marathon and again had such a blast. And so did 3 more marathons this year, Jan, February, and March. The 3 more marathons. And then I decided, you know what? Why not go and push myself a little bit more and see how far I can go? And then I entered a trail, which was in Naazneen this weekend. And it was, so initially I entered the 50K trail. And then in the morning I felt so good, and they said you can in the morning decide if you want to upgrade or downgrade any of the distances. So I was like, I felt so good, I'm going to do the 54. And then I did the 54K trail, finished it, and I was so excited. And it was just like, this is a training run for comrades next year. And you'll see how this is escalating. So it was a down run, but it wasn't really just down. So, and so I'm saying it's my preparation for comrades. So this year I'm going to try and qualify so I can run Oceans Ultra next year and the comrades next year. So that's basically how I got into running, guys. 14 months later, I'm an ultra marathoner.
Sure. More than most people can say for running. Well done. Naz, tell us your story. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum.
Good evening, salam alaikum. Cheryl, these things that you say that kind of resonate with me. I think for me, my story started with a little bit of a bittersweet start. In kind of August of 2020, my mother died of COVID-19, and it was at the kind of start of the pandemic. People didn't really know, what was going on. So she died. It was something the family obviously never expected, but she had a lot of comorbidities, and so did I. So I was pre-diabetic, I had hypertension, I was overweight. And I think her death just made me go, am I ready to die? No. Am I ready to potentially lose a limb, go blind or something because I have diabetes? No. And I think as someone who has yo-yo dieted my whole life, I have a father who is incredibly athletic. He still is, in his mid-60s. Sport, movement was just something I was never interested in. And so, I don't know, when my mom died, something just clicked in my head and I was like, no, this is not the life I want for myself. And so I kind of went on a 2-year journey, kind of working through my relationship with food. I still wasn't moving, but I was interested in understanding food, my relationship with food, culturally. What does food mean for me? What are my triggers with food? And so 2 years after that, I kind of lost about, almost 30 kilograms. And then a friend of mine said to me at work, let's go for a run. And I said, oh, you're nuts. I don't like moving. I'm a sloth. And she said to me, no, man, let's go for a run. And so we did. And I ran my first 5K after having kind of been doing some, mild weightlifting for a little bit, dabbling in that. But it was quite addictive. So I think, Cheryl, just like you, I ran the Lighthouse 10K first. And then my friend said to me, no, your first race is going to be the Absa 10, which I then did. And the bug kind of bit at that point. And then I did the Slave Route 10. And then my friend said to me, the gun run's going to be your first half marathon. So I've been running half marathons and the like for the last year and a half or so. And next year I turn 42. So I figured there's no better gift than to gift myself a marathon next year. So this year will be prep for next year. I will run my first marathon. So not quite the comrades, but my first marathon.
Naz, and that's an interesting story. And to your point, it's not the comrades, but it's your biggest achievement. And people need to see it for that. Whether it's a 5K, whether it's a 10K, when we hear Exo's story, whether you're lifting a 5K dumbbell, if that's your PB, then that's your PB. That's your personal best. Nobody can take it away from you. So well done. I mean, what was it like losing all that weight and people seeing you after all that time?
It was interesting because, I work in a corporate. So for 2 years, people didn't really see me or see much of me. And so when I came back to work, I mean, I work in human capital, so I know most of our employees in our head office environment. People didn't recognize me. There's still people that I see now who don't recognize me. So the comments are always like, oh my word, like, what have you been doing? And I think even people seeing me now be more active, so be in the gym, or the fact that I'm running, is, I think it's more surprising to others. I mean, it's still surprising to me, quite frankly. Sometimes I'm at the starting line of a race and it's raining and I'm asking myself, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
Because I used to judge my father when he did that, and I used to go to races to watch him, and it would be raining and cold, and I'd be thinking, oh, these people nuts. And now I've become that person, which is something quite interesting for my dad and I to kind of giggle about now.
But it also creates a bond. Mr. X, you don't have any of these problems because you're in a gym, my friend. What's it like? How are you?
On the contrary, I actually did have these problems. So basically, on my side, I wanted to be a soccer player, surprise, surprise, as a profession. And it took a turn. I got to become a pro, but never fulfilled it because I got sick in the very early stages, and I got some lung infection, and I had to give it up because I had limited VO2 max. And basically, the doctors were saying, look, as a professional athlete, like your VO2 max has to reach a certain point, and yours will just never get there. So I had to give it up. Naturally, after that, I gained a lot of weight. I was actually overweight, obese, and I needed something to do. So I turned to esports, which is something that I was quite good at. And I was actually two-time SA champ, and I represented South Africa twice in South Korea in esports for FIFA. And then naturally, I mean, you can see what esports players look like. I mean, the type of people that are in their mothers' dungeons eating all day. And that's how I got fat. And, I played a bit of sport here and there, but then, I just got overweight and I was disappointed in myself because I used to say, look, I'm a former athlete. I was in good shape. I need to drop all this weight. And I was also having a few, health problems. So I decided to turn to the gym. And long story short, I dropped weight. There was also like Naz yo-yo dieting, like I'd go up in weight, down in weight, up in weight. And eventually I dropped tremendous amount of weight and I started to look really good. And there was one guy at the gym that came to me in the bathroom, and he brought up the idea and he said, hey, look, you're in shape. You should probably compete. And this was in 2015. And I knew nothing about competing. I knew the show was in a couple of weeks. I bought trunks and I went on stage. Now, the key thing was that I was natural and I was going up against, the enhanced athletes. But nonetheless, I was happy that I placed 10th because, at least I placed.
Yeah.
And for years, I was looking for a home for natural bodybuilding. Where can somebody that is natural find a home? And long story short, I found the Western Province Bodybuilding Union and came across Lola, and they've been so helpful for me getting here because they had the SA champs, and I entered the SA champs and I won my division there, and thus qualified to represent South Africa at the World Champs, and which was last month. So we went to the World Champs, and I did two categories there. Finished third in one and fourth in the other. And it was just such a how could I say it? Almost like a life fulfilling prophecy, because I write down a lot of things so that I can visualize it. And there was a point where I'd lost weight and I entered a men's health competition called Belly Off, and I lost 35 kilograms. And they asked, what are your future goals? What do you have next? And what's your plan the next 5 to 10 years? And one of them, I said, was to compete at the Natural Olympia. And lo and behold, I got to the World Champs. I did well. Now I've qualified for the Olympia, which is in November. So it's been an interesting journey so far, having to, rebuild yourself, having a failed career. Well, I wouldn't say failed, but I didn't get to live up to something that I hoped to do. And I found myself having to rebuild and reestablish my fitness goals, because I mean, if you're an athlete, it's something that you really never give up. I mean, it's very rare that you find somebody that was an athlete just stop it altogether and not engage in any other sport or even within their sport. So it's always something that was in me that I just couldn't give up competing in any form or shape. And natural bodybuilding has given me that platform, and it's something that I plan on doing for a very long time.
Absolutely. Thanks, X. And well done. For those who are joined in, let me just put you in the picture. You get two types of bodybuilding. You get the natural one, which is natural bodybuilding, and you get the IFBB, which is the one where they use all kinds of steroids and anabolic stuff to build them up. X is a part of the natural bodybuilding where they only use pure stuff and natural stuff that's not on a banned list. So if you represent South Africa in any sport, there's what's called the WADA list, which is published in January every year. And on that list is all the banned substances. You can Google it and you can see what's on there, whether it's in your cough mixture. There may be stuff in your cough mixture. If you're competing at international level, that taking a cough mixture could have you banned for 2 years or 4 years for doping. So if you're competing at that kind of level, those are the kinds of nuances that one needs to be very careful of. Viewers, you're welcome to ask questions, comments, whether on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Tell us what you think of our guests. My question to each of you, and I'll start with Cheryl, Taz, X, and then I'll come to Naz. How difficult is it to keep going now that you've started and you're on this journey? Because often we get to a point where you're at this point now where things are happening. Is it just because it's happening, or is there a way that's keeping you going? And the reason I'm asking that is because how do we get everybody else to keep going more than anything else? Because it's one thing to start, and we get many people who start and come winter, then they stop, and then come summer, then they carry on. What keeps you going, Cheryl?
Life happens. So obviously there's times where, you can't go for a run or whatever reason. But something that Tasneem also said earlier resonates with me is, you said you were sick or you had your diabetes, etc. So for me, for many years, I also struggled with some health issues. So I couldn't even walk like for 20 minutes or so without being sick or down for like 2 days. So now that I've overcome that, that's my motivation. It's like, years ago you couldn't even walk. That's my why. So every time that I run, I'm so grateful that I'm able to do this. What life happens, and I was like, life is still going to happen whether I go for a run or not, so I might as well go for it. And I do get cranky when I don't go for a run. I get very annoyed because I can feel like I just need to be out there. I want to go. I just need to go and relieve some stress. So that's what keeps me going, knowing that a few years ago, I was so sick, like really, really. I had an operation every 2 to 3 years. So now that I am able to run or able to do activities, ride my mountain bike, I do it. I take advantage of it, and I'm like, I'm just grateful to God that I can do this. So that's my why, and that's what keeps me going and doing this. And that's why I keep setting these goals, trying to push my boundaries, because I'm like, you know what? You couldn't even do the 5K. Now you can. Now you couldn't even do this. So why not try this? So that's my get up and go motto or mantra for myself.
Great one. Tassie, wat hou vir jou nog op 'n high pool boot? Want jy kan nou baie ander dinge gedoen het. Jy bly in Bontebel as baie dinge wat jou gelaat ros het, soos hulle sê in Afrikaans. Hoekom speel jy nou altyd pool en hoekom is jy nou altyd betrokke? Dis wat ek wil weet by jou.
I think it's my only escape, I can do on the pool table what I want to. And it's stress-free, and it's my happy place, and what drives me the most is the support structure I have. And because with COVID, I was sick, and there was a time when I thought I'm not going to make it. And stuff like that, looking back at it, it just drives me, and it's my escape, my only escape. I can do on the pool table when nobody tells me, oh, you need to do that. I can just do whatever I want to.
And how does it make you feel knowing that there are so many people around you in the area where you stay that don't have the opportunity that you have? You are growing up in a pool shop representing South Africa, where others didn't have that and turned to a life of drugs and all kinds of other stuff. How does that make you feel?
It's heartbreaking because I mean, like, I do go away a lot and all that, and I need to come up with my own funding. I don't get funding from the government because it's not recognized as a sport, you know. So I'm actually hoping that it gets recognized as a sport, and my main aim is to, go to Bonteville and open an academy for the youth and just take them away from gangsterism and drugs, and yeah, that is my main aim going forward.
Tassie, you never know who's watching, who may come on board and say, I'll partner you on that. So let's keep that channel, let's keep that conversation going. Even after this, we can continue that conversation. Okay? X, what keeps you going, my man? Why do you go to the gym every day to do bicep curls and tricep pushes and dips and all of those kinds of things? Is it for the women?
It's just for only one woman, luckily.
Good answer. Good answer.
You know, so there's another motivating factor. You know, for me, I think I'm a competitive person, you know, at heart. And, you know, I think I'm at my best when I have to do something that pushes me beyond what is quote unquote normal or a certain level or a certain standard. And sport is the only thing for me that is the one vehicle or tool that takes you away from ordinary life and almost asks you questions of yourself. You know, why are you, like with Naz, you know, she could go to bed, but she decided to get up and decided to run. You won't do that with work because you have to, you know, but with sport, it's almost an inner calling that makes you figure out a few things about yourself. And I think if you're a self-driven person and you're self-motivated, you know, those questions come easy. And I think I'm a self-driven and a self-motivated person. And I find it easy because I set, you know, goals and I set all sorts of targets. So if, for example, I know I'm competing in X amount of weeks' time, what did I look like last time? What do I want to look like this time? You know, how many minutes of cardio did I do this time? How many minutes? How many sets? How many reps? So I think if you have micro goals, you know, that lead towards the macro goal, it always helps, because I find along the way, people always try to climb Mount Everest when they can't even get past Table Mountain, for example. So, you know, start there and then slowly work your way up. And before you know it, you'll realize that your every next step is your next motivation. And it doesn't have to be something tremendous. It just, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So even that one step, you know, leads to you being motivated to step 2, step 3, without you knowing. You'll just have that fire in you. And, you know, while you're at the gym, you know, your friends are out partying, drinking, and it's those small decisions that will make the bigger picture clearer.
Great answer, because it's building from a foundation of one step after another. Whether it's pool, whether you spend 2 hours on that board practicing to get that ball in, or whether it's going for a run, or whether it's lifting that one dumbbell. It's consistency that's important. Naz, from your perspective, why are you running still, or why are you active?
I think, I don't know. I think in many ways I do it because I want my mother's death to have meaning, which sounds a little bit quite macabre and deep, but I think at its core, that's what it's about. I mean, every time I run, I marvel at what my body can do. Every time I'm in the gym and I'm lifting weights, I marvel at what my body can do, what it didn't do before and what it can do. And so I think my mantra in life, when it comes to movement, it's about consistency. It's not perfection. And motivation looks different in different seasons. It waxes and wanes. And I just feel like consistency looks different for me at different times of the year. Sometimes I'm incredibly motivated, and I'm lucky to say that I'm in a very motivated space at the moment, but sometimes I'm not. And then I have to set my alarm for an hour before I would normally get up. So I give myself 60 minutes to really think about whether I don't want to get up or not. And so usually within that 60 minutes, I go from I'm not getting up to it's too cold to, okay, maybe, okay, just 5Ks. And then I come back and I've done 12. So I think it's having that grace for myself. And then there's days you just don't want to. And if that's also okay. Like I listen to my body. But I also think the other thing that's been important for me is surrounding myself with people who have like-minded goals or have similar interests. And so we have different friend circles who bring and contribute different things to our lives. But I also think the people that I've met I found myself as the chairperson of an athletics club, which of itself is ironic on many levels. But I think I find myself around people who are at also, different levels of their own kind of, journeys with their bodies, with health, with movement, with wellness. And so seeing them having their goals explained to me, it feels like a little bit of a symbiotic process where I'm, absorbing from them and they are absorbing from me. And that is quite motivating in and of itself. So I think for me, it's a combination of things. It's being consistent. It's about understanding where my motivation levels are, tapping into the people around me who are maybe more motivated than me, and then listening to my body. If I don't want to do as much, something is better, I think, than nothing. And I'm just really grateful. Like I said, every single time I move my body, I go, I hope that she forgives me for, the 38 years that came before when I didn't move her in the way that she should, but she still shows up. So I'm quite grateful for that.
And that's the great part, is that whether you start at 38, whether you start at 58, or whether you start at 8, you've started. And people need to realize that it's never too late to start. Up until last week, I've heard of 9 males who've had heart attacks in 2 weeks. People I know closely, and they all from 30 right up until 60. So and some of them are fit and healthy. Just because they're fit and healthy doesn't mean they can't have a heart attack. It's a latent disease that sits in. You don't know you have a heart problem until you actually have a heart attack, unless you have a check out regularly. So it's those kinds of things, and we need to be cognizant of those kinds of things all the time. Let's get to some of the comments. Riaz says, well done all, you motivate the rest of us. Lola says, big congratulations to you, Tasneem, number 1 in the world. Awesome experience and well done. Riaz also says that I need to facilitate a meeting with Taz and the MEC for sport. Yes, that can happen. Mr. McKenzie or MEC McKenzie is just busy finding his feet. We have a meeting scheduled, so it will be on there. That's one of the things on the agenda, Taz. But also I have a conversation with the councillor Angus, who potentially could shed some light on space in Bonteheuwel. So my next question to all of you is, when you get to an event, what's it like for you, particularly coming from your own little corner, in inverted commas, your own little circle, into this big space? X, you coming into a world championships. Taz, you coming into a world championships. Cheryl, you came to Naazneen. What was that like? Naz, you coming to the slave route. What was that like? Coming into running in your own little space on a weekend with 2 or 3 people, and now you're surrounded by all these people and you get caught up in the euphoria. How do you manage that? Let's start with X, then we'll go Taz, and then we'll come to Naz.
To be honest
X, let's
with
go.
you, I really get very nervous before any competition. Can I tell you a secret? Even when I go to the gym, sometimes I get nervous and I don't understand why. I genuinely don't understand why. I go to the gym and I'm like, okay, I need to really, get ready, and I hype myself up. And I think music really helps a lot. And then, as soon as I get on there, I always just tell myself that, you know what, I'm not here to carry anyone's bag. I'm also here to compete. And, I have to give it my best. I have to display what I have to display. And it's there for the taking. And I think, with athletes, sometimes it's very important to not lose the match before it started. So I think, whatever little psychological and emotional, whether it's little rituals you might have or superstitions, I think anything that you can do that always calms you down helps. So for me, listening to music and just taking my mind away from the event always helps.
Absolutely. Let me tell you a secret. If you're wearing a heart rate monitor watch, the first 15 to 20 minutes before you start your exercise, your heart rate already elevates. It's called anticipatory heart rate. Without realizing it, it jumps 8 to 10 beats. So automatically your body is already starting to rev up. And now you just need to get your mind into that space. Because your body is already going. It's already there. It's already moving because it subconsciously is already telling you, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to exercise. So automatically, if you track it within 10 to 15 minutes of you actually starting, it's already starting to elevate. And when you get to the final, like Tasneem did, it's already revving into the red because now your mind is working, your body is working, everything's going into the next space. Tasneem, how was that final for you, getting into that space, into that crowd, knowing that you could be the world champion?
It's a different kind of feeling. I was in a zone. It was just me and the table that moment. And I told myself, because Kirsty Davis from Wales, she's a phenomenal player, and ik moet net 'n kans kry. Then I will work my way from and that's why I say winning nationals and winning the worlds is two different types of feelings. It's so unreal, and that moment you feel like I did it, South Africa.
Yeah.
And because if you look at all the competition I had, and that people get paid to play, where it's a struggle for us to only get there, and the crowd, and I don't know even who was watching the game live that moment in the crowd, because like I said, I was in my own zone. I was just and then I even asked him to leave the arena after I won because I was too emotional.
And when you're in that moment, it's like nothing else, everything around you is dead. You just focus on that very moment, on that table. It's like Usain Bolt once said, I get to the start line and it's dead silence around me for the first 3 seconds. Because all I'm focused is to hear that gun, and everything is dead until I start getting close to the finish line, then I hear the crowds. Was that kind of the feeling until you sank that back ball?
It was that kind of feeling.
I don't think. Yeah.
On the live, when I look back on the live and I watch my game now, then I'm like, I've never looked like this before. And everybody keeps telling me, you were in a zone. And, I need to keep my composure and the nerves. And it's a lot going through my mind that moment.
And what motivated you to try and win the world championship? What was the motive? What was in the back of your mind when you were doing it? Was there anything specific?
I think the hard work and the determination and the self-discipline from my side, it was there, because each and every night I would play and then have a good meal and then I would rest. Even if I just relax in my room, I won't go out. Or I was in my own little bubble.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. Cheryl, Celeste Cole says, well done, my bestie. Cheryl, I'm proud of you. You're an inspiration. What keeps you, what was the difference for you from the Absa 10 to a Naazneen Ultra, coming into this big race?
So this was only my second trail race that I did. So I did a 10K like a few months ago, and now the 50, I broke it up in little segments. So going to the start and all these kinds of things, I was like, I'm gonna do 10Ks, 5 times. That's what I'm doing. And we had a taxi that they had to shuttle us now 50Ks into the mountain. And you see all these other trail runners with all their fancy gear and all sorts of things. And they already, you can see this is what they do. It's their bread and butter, And when we finally got to the top of where the start is, I told myself, everybody must just go. I will leave when I am ready. I don't want to get caught up in the hype. And then you start off too fast and then you burn out later. And that's what I did. The minute it was like, okay, go, I stood there and I waited, and I could see people run down and they started an incline already. And then I started my journey. And, I did these little check-ins with my video every 10Ks, how I was feeling, documenting my process. And every time I was just like, this the 10K, another 10K, and I did my check-ins like that. And I didn't compare myself to anybody. I was just there for me and see what I can do and how far I can go. And, okay, how far is it to the next aid station? I couldn't be bothered. We were chatting with people, but it wasn't for me a case of, what, I need to beat this person, I need to that person. I was only competing with myself. So that's how I did that race. And it was awesome finishing at 5 o'clock that afternoon. So it's like 9 hours on my feet. My feet were burning, they were sore. But I got there and I was like, I made it. I actually did this. Like, yay. I can do another 10Ks or so. But it was 54Ks later. And I think to myself, like, what, that was amazing. Everybody else was gone, but that wasn't the point. The fact is I finished. For me, that was enough.
And what was interesting is when you posted your check-ins, it's like 10K done, I'm okay. I'll see you later.
Yes.
Next 10K, I'll see you later.
Yes, ciao for now.
Did that help you manage your race better? Having that kind of different mindset?
Yes, because like I said, I broke my race up in 10Ks. So every time I did a check-in, I was just feeling, okay, now I'm still feeling good. I didn't see it another 40Ks to go. I just like, okay, this is my 20K check-in. And then when I got to 30Ks, I was like, okay, it's been 5 hours. It's 30Ks done. And then so forth. I didn't look at like, oh, another 30Ks to go. Because that would demotivate me. So instead, just doing my check-ins like that was motivation enough. Like, hey, I still feel good. Almost there, almost done.
Okay. Note to self, check in all the time after every 10Ks tomorrow when I climb the next hill.
Do that.
Naz, what's it like for you coming out of a community and into a big race? What does it feel like for you?
Intimidating. There's a little bit of imposter syndrome. I think the first year I was running, I just really didn't feel like I even wanted to call myself a runner. I felt like it was a title I didn't deserve. It was a title that I didn't earn. You look around you, I think, Cheryl, like you say, you look around you and you see everybody with their fancy gear and you kind of just don't, I don't know, you just don't feel like you belong, and yet somehow you do. And one day it just clicks that you are a runner, just like everybody else. And I think the wonderful thing about running for me personally, as someone who still has kind of the old way that I looked, and sometimes you still look at yourself in the mirror and you see the old version of yourself. I think the beautiful thing about running is that it's so diverse. You can look at anybody and you can't make any assumptions about what they are capable of, what they're not capable of. They will surprise you, and everybody has their own goals. And I think that's what's beautiful for me about racing. So sometimes I get nervous for the weirdest reasons. I mean, when we were at the Gooks 10K, for some reason, my friend and I looked at each other. We're like, why do we feel nervous? This is like so bizarre. And we were just there for the vibe. So we weren't even racing that day. But I think my biggest kind of realization is that I deserve to take up space just like everybody else. It doesn't matter that I've been running for, under 2 years. It doesn't matter that I haven't done a marathon yet. What matters is that my goals are my own and that it's way more than I was doing 2 years ago. And I think I'm particularly just kind of startled and proud of myself every time I run a half marathon. I go like, sometimes you stand on the start line and you really go, what the hell am I doing here? Or halfway through when you're battling with a particularly challenging hill, you go, what the hell am I doing here? And yet the minute you cross the finish line, you go, I want to do that again. So I think, that's kind of the thing for me. It's just, I deserve to be here. I deserve to take up space. Doesn't matter how I look. It doesn't matter how anybody else looks. We kind of all on our own very unique journeys.
Absolutely. And that's the secret. Is I don't have to run a 10K in a sub 60 because everybody else is doing it. If my 1 hour 15 minutes is my maximum that I can go and it's my best, then it's my best, and celebrate the best that you can do. So my next question to each of you, because all of you speak indirectly about your support network. What makes it special? Because many of us don't have that kind of support network who's watching. So in your understanding, what kind of people surround you that keep you going? Let's start with Naz, then I go to Taz, then I go to Cheryl, then I go to X. Naz, let's go.
I think there's three very important people, I think, that were kind of pillars in my running journey. So they, in particular, kind of motivated me and said to me, you can, even when I thought I couldn't. And I mean, those three people are very important to me, my father being one of them. But I also think I'm the president of an athletics club, and so I'm surrounded by people with all sorts of goals. And so I find that incredibly energizing and motivating. Their stories, their journeys, just like my story is motivating to them. So I think for me, it's just, I think, surround yourself with people who have similar goals, even if or in other ways you don't have a lot of other things in common. If the movement that you are interested in is something that is, connects you in some way, that is something that will kind of keep you consistent. And so that to me is an incredibly important part of where I find myself today. I think for the first year I ran, I did most of my running alone. And this year I've discovered community, which means that my second year of running has been completely different to the first, but I would venture to say way more joyous. I'm not running as fast as I did in the first year because I'm not running by myself, but I feel now that I'm just enjoying the sport more. So I think you've got to find what works for you. But for me, it's finding like-minded people, and then those one or two kind of pillars who you go to give you sound advice, and kind of they're there to rub your shoulders when you cross the finish line and you're bawling like a 2-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. And the definition of a club is a group of people with a common goal, which is sport, to grow socially.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. Tasneem, from your perspective, who and how would you define the people around you that keep you going?
I think my mom, my dad, my partner, I've got so a lot to mention. And, if it wasn't for South Africa, I wouldn't have represented the country. You understand? And the poor Western Cape Poor Union, My Day Brands, and the list goes on. Lickajay family. Then I even have like a group of girls, and we call ourselves the Flossy Possies. And they were through me and crying with me, and and all my supporters, my manager that managed me now, Anaya, and my teammates, and I've got a very big support structure, and I'm grateful, and I will always remember them. I will never forget about them. And it drives me to do better at the end of the day because of all of them, There's a lot that I can mention, and the list will go on. I think it's at the end of 12 o'clock.
And that's the key is that it takes a community to raise a champion. It's not a one-person game. It's a group of people that drives the process. And you testimony of that exact thing. That you can say it will take 2-3 hours to go through everybody that helped you to get to a world champion. Many years ago, there was a study done by the Australians that said it takes $1 million for one gold medal at the Olympics per athlete, excluding the amount of people involved, which they came up to about, I think it was 10,000 people and $1 million Australian dollars for a gold at an Olympics. So if you think about that, how important is it in your space? Cheryl, from your perspective,
So
who
from my
helps you?
side,
Who keeps you going?
my running club. So before I moved down, I inquired about a running club. So joining a running club where people literally took me under their wings and helped me from, learning now to do this and teaching me all these things that is common knowledge to everybody. But now as a novice runner, they really took me under their wings. So I'm very grateful to everyone in our club for doing that. And then obviously my family as well, because you know what, you get up at stupid o'clock to go out and run, and then you come back, they've had lunch, and you just come there all sweating, you want to have a shower, and so you kind of you lose some family time over weekends. During the week you have training runs, and then I'm very grateful for the running fraternity because Cape Town have just like adopted me as one of their own. I've made so many friends in the running community, and you know what? Everybody's like, "How do you know these people running?" Because I'll be like, "Oh, I ran there. I know them from there." You know, and so and that makes such a big difference, having people help you in the sport, and not just your friends, your family, but it's those people that will tell you, "Hey, listen, I noticed when you run this or this or this or that," giving you little tidbits of advice that help them, even if it's not something that's maybe something you will use, but it helps to know and understand why things happen or why certain things are the way it is. So yeah, I'm very grateful for my friends as well, because many times I'd be like, I can't go out because I'm in training. So they have to first like, are you running this weekend because we want to do something? And I'm like, yeah, I'm running. And they're like, okay. You know, so stuff like that. So I'm grateful that I have supportive friends, family, and my running club and the running community at large. Very supportive.
And definitely, running community definitely works, but all communities, if you look at that, there's Neem in the pool community, they're a massive community. They have clubs all over the show, and they all support each other. Um, where did I see that message? Oh, I will get the message now. X, what keeps you going, my man? How's your support structure looking?
My wife.
The wedding ring. Is that your only
Yeah.
support structure?
You know, it's
Your biggest fan?
it's the biggest one because, you know, bodybuilding is an incredibly selfish sport, you know, and oftentimes it leaves you with little room for compromise because, you know, if you've eaten a certain time, you have to train a certain time. And I've got kids. So if I have to do morning cardio, you know, somebody's up in the middle of the night, you know, dealing with the kids that are up. You know, if I have to train a certain time, somebody will fetch the kids, and you know that somebody's my wife, and you know she comes to my shows, she supports me, and it's a day one thing. She's been there. I mean, when I was 115 kgs, you know, overweight, you know, slugging my way through the gym, and you know, here we are today, and you know, came with me to the world champ. So it's just almost been a journey from day one with her up to now, and she's been on my corner supporting me unconditionally, you know, because like I said, you know, it's a very selfish sport, you know, when there's that extra 500 and, you know, we could go out for dinner or I could buy more protein powder, you know. So it's one of those things where,
Tough choice. It's
you
a
know,
tough choice, my friend.
it's a very tough choice, you know, but you have somebody that's understanding that will say, okay, it's fine, you know, or even when we go out and, you know, I'm the one there that's ordering the chicken and salad and, you know, she's out there having her meal and, you know, she genuinely wants to share that experience with me where we can eat what we want and drink what we want. But she supports me through everything, you know, and the crucial thing also is, I think everyone can attest to this, is somebody actually understanding what you're doing. I mean, Cheryl said it there. The fact that her friends have to phone her first means that they understand that, okay, look, she's doing something serious. So let's check first, you know, and just having that understanding in what you're doing is a big difference. So, yeah, for me, it's my wife for sure. She's sitting there, so that's why I say that.
I just want to add that my sister. I just want to add, Alton, that my sister's getting married. So every weekend I'm racing somewhere. So she'll normally say to me, I have a bridal appointment at X time. Will you be available? And I'm like, I'll make myself available.
And the note should be anytime after 11:30, I'll be available. Because I first got to run after 11:30. When the race is done, we can do it definitely. And which brings me to an interesting point. Tasneem, in your space, when is pool played and how is it played? Because, I mean, you need to have a life, and all of you are talking about how do we try and balance this work, life, sport, social life kind of balance? Because we often battle with that. We either get skewed to what X was saying, almost we get skewed to a point where we so focused on gym that our partners, unlike in his case, support him and work with him. They generally don't because we're so focused on what we do. How do we strike that work-life sport balance? Tasneem, let's start with you.
So basically on a Sunday I play league during the day, and the other nights I play in the evening, starting at 8 o'clock. I can't give a time what time I'm done. So, and it's, yeah, I think I'm off on a Saturday, but most of the time at night I'm practicing or playing comms, and yeah. So
And how do you
it's
balance?
only on.
How do you balance the tournaments with everything else?
My family knows already. If it's
Okay.
birthdays, I'm not available, I'm playing. Story.
Simple, no questions asked.
Questions asked, yeah, they know the story.
Muhammad Shamir Ali says, awesomeness personified. Well done, Ted. You are phenomenal. That's someone who comes from Bonteville, who's started a running club called Umidra Running Club. He's the president of our running club. He says, you are phenomenal and you're a great example to the community. So well done.
Shukran.
Cheryl, from your perspective, how do you balance it? Being in a court space, being a mother, and being an aspiring comrade runner. As gooi is maar in vir jou.
Like, okay, so this week I've decided I'm not going to run because I'm recovering. So I asked my friend, tomorrow's first Thursday. So now I'm asking, can we go out? Tomorrow's first Thursday. So when I'm not running, I'll be like, okay, I do a long run Saturday morning. So anything from like 11 o'clock, I'm available. We can do something if I don't have a race. So then we kind of like now busy with schedules here. So that's how I balance life. When I'm not available, I make sure that I reach out to my friends and be like, can we do something? So that's what I do.
Makes sense. Nez, you travel quite a bit. How do you balance all of this and still be the president of a running club and still run and still be a daughter and still be and?
Well, when I travel, I ask them to make sure that there's a gym. So that's the first thing. But no, I don't know. I think things just kind of seamlessly work out the way they work out. I think the people who are closest to me, who I spend the most time with, generally understand what my interests are, what my schedule is. And I mean, I'm mindful of that as well. There's times where there's things that's not negotiable. And so me wanting to run is just not going to happen because I have to prioritize family or friend time. And then there's other times when I just make sure that by 10 I'm home, or by 11 I'm home because I have a thing in the afternoon. But I'm also I think I'm a morning person. So I'm very specific about the things that I want to do and trying to be consistent about keeping those things in the schedule as much as possible. So I'm in the gym twice a week. That's not negotiable unless my trainer and I make an arrangement. And then I run with the club twice a week. That's not negotiable unless I'm traveling. And then on a Sunday or Saturday, I'll generally do a longer run. But that's maybe a little bit more where, I'll kind of go, okay, maybe I'll do less mileage, or I'll do it earlier in the day or later in the evening. But I think in general, the people in my life and it's a bit of a give and take. If there's something very specific I can't miss, then the running will have to be sacrificed. The family comes first.
Okay, makes sense. X, from your perspective, you're a married man, you've got kids, you're an international athlete. How do you balance all of these things? Cardio in the morning, weights at night, tons of protein. How do you balance all of these things? And you still got to work.
For me, I think flexibility was key. With this prep for the World Champs, this was probably the first prep ever now that I think about it, where I was more flexible, and simply because my wife and I came up with a schedule. So every Sunday we get our work schedules, and we've got our kids' schedules. When this one's got gymnastics, swimming, this and that, and then that's where I find my gap, and I'm like, okay, if my daughter's got gymnastics from 2:30 to 3:30, that means I can only go to the gym at a certain time or at a certain point of the week, and I work around them. Whereas before, it was more like it was all about me, and I find that it's made such a huge difference, because now there isn't that clash in the household of, oh, I wanted to go to gym, but I've just come back home from a long day and I have to deal with the kids. So it's helped being flexible on that standpoint, and sharing your schedule with your partner so that they also know, okay, he or she's going to be at the gym at this time, I'll handle it at this time, and then when I come home, there's my duty that I fill in. And I think that's been the key, just being flexible and planning your your life ahead. Because, with I think we all can attest to this. There's nothing more irritating when you have set your time out to train or to practice, and then somebody asks something of you at that point in time, and it's like, now you're asking me now? Couldn't you ask me an hour ago? So I've literally had none of that this year, because we've just been more flexible with our schedules, and it's allowed both of us, because my wife loves training as well, so it's allowed both of us to actually be in sync with our time and just make things very easy. So just being flexible also helps.
Which helps if you have an understanding and accommodating partner and shares the common goal. Definitely it helps. So guys, we're coming to the end. So I'm going to ask you to round up, and as is customary on the Talk at 8, my last question is always, how and what will you tell someone who is not active to be active? Irrespective of the sport that you're in, what drives you, and what would you tell someone else? What would you tell me if I wasn't active in sport? What would be your message, your parting message to me to get active? Any one of you can start.
I guess I'll go and just say that movement doesn't have to be 0 to 100. You can take one step. And I think if you are consistent with the one small thing you want to change, then you have already won. I think health and fitness, kind of the prevailing sentiment around that is that you have to go on a diet, and you have to work out, and you have to be running, and you have to be in the gym. And I think that that's ridiculous. I think human beings need time to adapt. Change is inevitable, but I also think that you can take small steps, and in doing that and being consistent with whatever that small step is, it automatically snowballs into more. So I would say to someone, don't feel pressurized around what other people are doing. If you identify being able to walk 1 kilometer every other day or once a week is your starting point, be consistent with that, and more will come.
Definitely, it's about consistency and about making that first step. Tasneem, Samantha October says she's very proud of you. Well done. What would you say to Samantha and to anybody else who's watching to do sport, or to do or any kind of sport?
Hard work and determination, and if you set your mind to it, anything is possible. That's what I believe in. It's never too late, and never quit. Go for
And
it.
if you lose, you come back and you evaluate and you come back again, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Cheryl, from your perspective?
I would tell someone that find something that you are passionate about and not what everybody else is doing. See what makes you tick. And if you're passionate about something, you will do it. You will keep on doing it. And then just consistently do what it is that will make you happy. And don't compare yourself to anybody else and their goals. Just focus on you, compete against yourself. And that should be the only thing. It should be a lifestyle change and not be something that you set a time frame to and say, I'm giving myself in 3 months this. No, it should be a lifestyle change. And I think if you enjoy what you're doing, then you'll keep on doing it. So that would be my advice.
They definitely agree. X, from your perspective?
Before we go, I must say, Tez, I'd like to play you one day, because a little known fact is that I actually used to play club pool, and I had my waistcoat and my nice little cue.
And my bow tie.
No, not quite a bow tie, but one of these days we should organize that. But, I think sport is one of those things where, go at your own pace. It's the one area or avenue where you will not be dictated by anybody's rules. It's you create your own life, essentially, your own rules, your own pace, where the direction that you want to go. So, I mean, for those Cheryl and Naz that run, for example, I mean, you running 3Ks at whatever time that you're doing, that's your time, and you can beat it, and you can feel over the moon by beating your time without having to compare it to Cheryl or Naz's time. It's the same with gym. Losing 1 kg for you is as great as somebody else losing 20, because you cannot define it by somebody else's rules. So it's the only avenue where literally you create your own world, you create your own parameters, you create your own boundaries without anybody having to tell you this is not good enough, or you can do more. Just work on your own pace, do anything that actually makes you happy.
Absolutely. And if you look in the mirror, each of us, we will realize that we are special and unique, first and foremost. Secondly, there are a million other people who are watching you without you realizing it. And they are inspired by you, just as you are inspired by someone else to be better. People are being inspired by what X has done. People are being inspired by Tasneem, by Cheryl, by Naazneen, by Alton, by everybody, because we are moving. We are doing things that other people want to do. And that's the key, is that we need to see it from that perspective, that we are always going to inspire people just by being us. And the more we try and drag people up with us, the more life happens and the more successful things become, and the more people play sport. Because sport is one of the most gratifying things that we can ever do. That's my view. And I'm sure the four of you and many others who are watching will agree. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for telling your stories. Thank you for continuing to be an inspiration. To those who are watching, from a cold and not raining Ladysmith, next week we will interview these four renegades lying here on the couch about their journey this week and what it's been like on a bicycle for 9 days. So until next week, have a good week. See you then. Ciao.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Everybody.
Stay here.